To the Middle Distance Clinic, hosted by our national record holder, NAVASKY Anderson, 1:42:78. Am I correct? 76. All right, one. Yeah, man, you can't clap the run. Jamaica now has a respectable national record in the 800. Too respectable. You know, we can actually get into the conversation with the Kenyans and the other East Africans about middle distance running. We can, because our national record is respectable, and so we can walk feeling proud. And the reason why I say it is because sometimes you watch the World Championships and you see the 100 meter preliminary round, right? You know, the preliminary round is a round where persons have not made the qualifying standard and they're running for maybe 8 places to make it to the first round, which is the heats. And many times you might not even get up if it's too early in the morning. You might not get up to watch the preliminary round because no Jamaicans are in it, right? And you see the time, and somebody runs 10:60, and it comes up beside their name as NR, which means what? National record. And you do what? What do? You laugh. Truth be told, you Jamaicans. You laugh. Oh, 10:60 is not fast for a national record. And for many years, that's how our 800 meter record looked to people who run 800. Just like how the 10:6 look to us for people who, right. So we're here because we want to continue the improvement in the middle and long distance, and particularly the 800. And we're happy to have with us NAVASKY Anderson, Kellyanne Beckford, and of course Coach Tom BRUMLIK. Yeah. And this is a joint project between the Jamaica Track and Field Coaches Association, the J3A, and NAVASKY and his team. And we're really happy that we're able to pull this off. The response has been great. A lot of persons actually missed out because we had to close the registration portal because we didn't expect as many persons to register. We're over 100 plus, and we didn't really plan for that many. But it's good that all of you are interested in running and the middle distance running, and we're encouraged by it. In fact, I think we already started the conversation about the next one. Last time when we met, we were just talking about the next clinic like this. But certainly, this is something that we're happy to be partnering with, and we're definitely looking forward to a great day. So now we're going to split up into the 2 groups. Coach will take the coaches in the smaller tent, and the athletes will remain here with NAVASKY and Kellyanne, and we'll have this session. And then after that, you, the athletes, will get a chance to train. Yeah, and then we have lunch, and that's it. So hopefully everybody have their gear, yeah, ready to feel some real pace. Yeah? Ready to be some real pace. Yes, we're looking forward to that. And there's some really good athletes right here. Alright? Aliki Reynolds is here. Stand up, Aliki, man. Aliki is a multi-medalist at Carifta. How much medal you get at Carifta? How much gold? Yeah. Only gold alone you get. No. Yes, Aliki is here. And of course, Brian Achoa, the 1500 meter, 5000 meter champion from Champs, is also here. Stand up, man. Recognize. Round of applause. we have some sprinters here who are eavesdropping. Yes, I see them. I see Shania, and Shania is a bronze medalist from World Under 20 in the 200 meters. One applause. She's learning about 800 today. Yes, so this is a really good group, and of course some really good coaches. I see a lot of mercy from St. Vincent here. He flew in from St. Vincent to be here with us. Yeah, so we're happy for everyone. Let me just give the mic to NAVASKY before we break up.
Alright. Good day, everybody. First and foremost, I want to give thanks and praise to the Most Almighty. There's nothing we can do without Him. So let's always in prayer real quick. Turn our Father God as we come before in prayer to the Lord Jesus. I want to ask you to guide and protect us, Lord. Cover us under the Lord Jesus as we come before in prayer to the Lord Jesus. Ask you for guidance, strength, and dedication. In the name I pray. Oh Lord, amen. Alright, so respect to everybody, to all the coaches who took the time off and brought their athletes here, sat in the sun while I was working out. Thank you to everybody for coming out today. It's really a pleasure to have you guys. I must say, I am really on a journey. It's been a journey of a lifetime. I want to say big up Coach Trail right here. That man right here is the man who came to Discover Bay Sector. Told me, pointed me up. Yeah. Brought me to St. James High School. So it's been a journey of a lifetime. He kept in touch with me for a whole year. While my mom was overseas at the time, had a great relationship with my mom, a great relationship with my grandma, and they made sure they set the foundation straight and set the plan, laid the plan out, and I decided that I was going to St. James High School, and that's where the journey started. But since then, just like all of you guys here, it's been a lifetime of dedication, and I must say, in the moments when I'm standing on that line, in the moments when I look up in the stands and I see thousands of people, 70,000 to 80,000 of people, and I look and say, alright, I need strength to finish this race. And I can look back and say, 12-year-old NAVASKY leave me right now. And when I can look back, I say, alright, the younger generation of Jamaica, they need somebody right now. They need me right now. They need me to show up. And just as much for you guys need me, I needed you guys. And it's just been really been a journey. And I'm just grateful for all of it. And this is what I'm doing here, a part of it this is a part of the journey. And I'm saying this to you guys because I want you guys to understand the mission. I might be standing here right now, but who knows, 10, 12 years down the line, 5, 6, 7 years down the line, it could be you, it could be you, it could be any one of you guys standing here and saying, Coach, big up enough. I love what you do for me, just like what I'm saying to Coach Trill right here. So the coaches, they have the plan. And I'm asking you guys, trust in the plan that the coaches have. Because if you don't trust in the foundation, if you don't trust in the plan, there's no way you're going to elevate the levels that you need to go. So yeah, thank you guys for coming out. We have a lot left in the day. We have a lot to attend to, a lot of questions to be asked, a lot of things that we can get into so you guys can better understand where we're trying to go, what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, thank you guys for coming out. So coaches, coach, you have anything to say? Good? Okay. Coaches?
Alright, thank you. Alright, so coaches, let's head over to the other tent, and athletes just hang tight. There's water in the igloo if you need a bottle of water. Feel free to grab some water.
I start going to clinics. So I really believe and value education. So I drove all across the U.S. to any clinic I could go to, any might be like adding some 50s over time, and then in the fall that's when we'll do a little bit of our like touching on race mechanics. So again, 100s to 150s to 200s. Just like you saw in the session today, things are going to develop over time. So right now it's the third speed development session. We're doing 100s after our 30s and 50s and things like that, and then they'll develop to 150s. To 200s. By the time we go to our indoor training camp, because we do an indoor season, it's going to be kind of your full-on race-specific work, like your 4 times a 400. With the high school kid, I'd probably say maybe do something more like 4 to 5 times a 300, things like that. And again, going back to like me starting as a high school coach, I said it to a couple of coaches this morning. There was a point in time where I was coaching our pro athletes and coaching high school kids at the same time. I believe that the program that we have can be watered down. So what NAVASKY is doing can be watered down to the high school population. Now, but that really means that just you're focusing on the intent of the day. So again, those treadmill days that NAVASKY does, it can't be for everybody, because again, if you have 100 kids on your high school team, you don't have 100 treadmills. You might not even have 1 treadmill. The other part too with the aerobic development days, again, obviously it's hot here year round, so it's really hard to tap into that. But I have a few nuanced things on how I've done that in the past with high school athletes, and how I've done it in the past before I had access to treadmills and things like that. So Mondays, speed development days, those will stay in year. We're doing 30s flies year round. We're doing focus drills year round. We'll do things like sleds in the fall. We'll do a little bit more technical things in the fall, and then those days become maybe a little bit more maintenance when we're prioritizing the race development type stuff. Tuesday is going to be our aerobic day, our high-end aerobic day. So again, for NAVASKY, that's going to look like your work that is going to be specific and going to be on the treadmill. So somebody like NAVASKY, he's going to do a lot of stuff on the treadmill. We have something called a lever where it takes a little bit of body weight off. Again, even without that high-tech type of equipment, what I would say is try to find a way to, again, if you're trying to mimic our program on a Tuesday, if I'm giving advice to a high school coach, is try to find a way to get the volume up and the intensity down. So to actually develop the aerobic system, all it knows is time and volume. So you want to be, even the treadmill runs, right? So NAVASKY has his heart rate in a specific zone. We do, Coach asked earlier, do we do heart rate stuff? We do. I don't know if I do it if we were outside in the heat, but that's where it comes into effort. So the principles of a Tuesday day is I want the effort to be a 6 to 6.5 out of 10. The athlete should have controlled breathing. They shouldn't at all ever be like this. They should just be able to they should feel like they're done with a rep, and they can just probably do 5 more. A typical session might be again, if you don't have access to a treadmill, if you don't have access to somewhere to do a long rep, we do a lot of stuff where, again, a speed power-based athlete, you want to improve the aerobic system without diminishing their speed. A lot of things we do, and a lot of things NAVASKY will do when he comes down here to Jamaica, doesn't have as much access to treadmills, is we'll do a lot of short intervals with short rest. So similar to what he's doing today, but maybe even slower. So a standard easy session that's repeatable that you could do year round is 20 by 200. You probably start, if it's a high school athlete that's not, that's undeveloped, it might start with 60 seconds rest. And then you want to try to bring down that rest for 30 seconds. And maybe you build it up to 25 by 200 or even 30 by 200. But the biggest thing about it is it's slow running, controlled running, even a little bit easier than what he was just doing. So again, if I was trying to say okay, how can we get the intent of that Tuesday day without having access to a lever, without having access to a treadmill, without having access to, trails, I would do that stuff all day long. Try to get as much volume as you can, low intensity as possible. And then when you get to your race specific time of year and you're trying to get ready for some bigger races, that's when you bring down the volume. So again, you might have a high school kid, they start with 15 by 200 in the fall, they build up to 24 by 200 in the fall, and then once they get into the race specific time of year, maybe they're back down to 12 to 15 by 200, where they're just touching that aerobic development, but they're not giving that full focus. So again, if you have an athlete that's really strong, maybe those 200s are 400s. But again, when you have a lot of heat, when you have a very speed-based athlete, and in Jamaica you're going to have a lot of athletes you're going to have more Tyrese Taylors most likely, and Kelly Ann Beckfords than NAVASKY. I think NAVASKY's a bit of an outlier. I do think at some point he's probably going to run low 330s in the 1500. So just again, always play to your strengths, always play to your environment. And you can also even do I've done hundreds in that way with athletes. It's just back and forth where you're doing 10 by 6 by 100, things like that. So the idea is You're trying not to spike up the lactate. You're trying not to spike up the heart rate. You're trying to keep it in this like steady zone, because that's when your cardiovascular system is going to adapt. That's when your aerobic capacity is going to develop. Your lactate threshold is going to develop, and you're not going to do a workout that is going to ruin the rest of the week. Steady work over time. So again, something that's repeatable every single week, over and over and over again, and you can build it throughout the season. So Wednesday, recovery day. That's a day where NAVASKY doesn't run, he does cross training. Again, we're lucky enough to have access to ellipticals. I think ellipticals are great. If you don't have access to ellipticals, circuits are great. Easy running is fine, but you gotta know your athletes and know how much volume they can handle. Again, I don't really love easy running. To me, everything is like how purposeful you can be with the running that you're doing. So yeah, Wednesday's gonna be a very easy, controlled day. Recover from the back-to-back speed day, aerobic day. Thursday is going to be somewhat of a flex day. So again, Kellyanne, 4-8 type athlete, she's going to have another speed development day. It might be a little bit more specific. In the fall, it'll be even more, dialed in on the mechanics and the drills and things of that nature. She might do 400 pace type work at the end of it instead of 800 type pace at the end of it. But again, very minimal doses. In the fall, it might be like 4 times an 80. And then as it gets more specific, it might be 3 times a 150. But again, steady work over time, slowly progressing over time. NAVASKY's gonna do a second aerobic development day, because like I said, he's trending more towards, we've just seen a lot of improvement as we tap into the aerobic side of things. So for him, it's a second day on that lever machine. So he's gonna build up to like 10 by 5 minutes on Tuesday, and maybe like 8 by 5 minutes, and then 10 by 4 minutes or something like that. So 2 sessions with about 40 minutes of volume in that specific heart rate, effort zone, etc. Friday in the fall is really the only time we're going to push. Again, you saw the session today. We're going to alternate between, again, we used to do turf. If I was down here, I'd probably live on the grass every other week, do intervals there. But same kind of concept, you're trying to build up on the aerobic capacity type work, the VO2 max type of work. But again, steady work over time, right? You start easy and you progress over time. So those workouts, they're going to be most challenging in your race specific, phase. As you get closer to racing, the workouts are going to be more intense and things like that. So we alternate every week. It's going to be the intervals that you saw today 1 week. Alternate that with hills the next week. The hills are going to be like a mile pace type session. So if you think of like, 1500 meter runners doing 10 by 300 or 8 by 400 or something that, again, pretty common out there, we're going to do stuff like that, but up a hill. 10 by 300 up a hill. But again, we start easy. We start with 200s up the hill. And then if they ace that, then it's 250s, and then it's 300s, and then it's 350s. We probably get to like 8 weeks of this base phase. So it's like he'll do 4 sessions like that. Pretty controlled track sessions, 3 miles, 4 miles worth of work, and then about 2 miles-ish on the hill, mile pace type work. And once we feel like we're in a good spot there, then we go to the track. So when we go to the track, all those sessions will get a little bit more specific. Monday turns into like your hardest day of the week, where it's going to be race pace type work. Tuesday is still going to be that aerobic development type day. Wednesday is still going to be your recovery day. Thursday, NAVASKY might go down to every other week being his second aerobic day. Now the other week he might do a second speed day. So it becomes like in a 2-week cycle, he's doing 3 aerobic sessions and 3 speed sessions. And then that Friday is gonna be a second challenging workout. So early in the year, it's gonna be 1 hard workout a week where they're, kind of feeling it. Later in the year, as we prep for races, it's gonna be 2 hard workouts a week. I very rarely have athletes that really go to the well 3 times a week. But again, if you have an athlete that responds to that, you can find a way to fit it in this system and make it work and stuff like that. I've had 2 athletes specifically that I've just found where I'm pretty conservative, but I found where they keep going up in intensity, they keep getting better. Most athletes I've found, especially in the 800, if you overload them, they might look great in practice, but they're not going to race well. So to me, the best workout you can do as an 800 meter runner is 2 times a 400 with 0 seconds rest. 800, right? So how can you race? I don't care what you do at practice, it's how you race. I would say NAVASKY this year, his workouts were probably less intense than maybe his 4 years previous, but responded really well to that. Just the recovery aspect of it, staying healthy, showing up to the track, ready to run and things like that. The weekend for us is usually going to be recovery. One off day, one moderate run. Again, if you have an athlete that really, really responds to volume and has a long run in their program, that might be something that we implement from time to time, where an athlete does a long run on a Saturday, off day on a Sunday, and then back to with a speed development day. I don't love the idea of a long run on a Sunday, because I want the athletes to be fresh when they sprint. So yeah, weekends usually recovering, keep the quality days quality, make sure you have some easy days in there, and so on. We lift on our hard days, so Monday, Friday lifting twice a week. Some of our athletes will double. NAVASKY will double twice a week with some extra cross training in the evening. Somebody like Kellyanne probably will not. Just my guess. She probably won't respond well to a super high volume. So that is in essence our weekly program. I feel like that probably gives you a good sense of the general philosophy. The only other thing I'll reemphasize is that, again, 3 categories of 800 meter runners. So you might have in your program an 800 meter runner that probably trains more with the 400 meter athletes and sometimes the 200 meter athletes, and they respond well to that. You might have an 800 meter runner that trains a little bit more the distance runners, and they all might come together for a couple of sessions and things like that. So really focus on trying to individualize things with the 800, because not everybody's going to respond well to more running and volume. Not everybody's going to respond well to more speed and things like that. And as a high school coach, the easiest way to kind of like figure that out is a lot of times like what I see with Jamaican athletes, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is they love track, right? They respect the sport coming out. They're probably not gonna BS you like the American athletes, and they just want to get a gym credit, or their parents send them to do it and they're just doing it to do it. And you got to kind of convince them to love it. You'll probably, if you just kind of look at the athletes and see what they like to do and where they excel, that'll probably tell you which way they train. With NAVASKY, he likes doing all the different types of trainings, so it's one of those things where like that's where his program's a little more balanced. Kellyanne likes to sprint, so we're gonna do more sprint stuff, right? So I would urge you to do the same thing with your athletes as you're figuring out what type of athlete they are. And obviously conversation too. I'm very much on the side, even when coaching high schoolers. Now again, it's maybe less with high schoolers, but just asking a lot of questions. I hate the question of how does that feel. It's more like, what did you think of that? And Brother Conal O'Connell, David Reach's coach, world record holder, has a quote that I'm going to butcher, but it's kind of one of my core coaching philosophies as well. Is athletes let him. I'm not even going to quote, but his basic philosophy was like his athletes kind of taught him everything he needed to know about coaching. He didn't come with a coaching background. He just learned by talking to his athletes and learning and growing and things of that nature. You don't have to be a great athlete to be a great coach, because if that was the case, then I'd be a rough spot. I wouldn't have a job. So cool. All right, yeah. So any questions? Like I said, I'd love to just back and forth conversation. Just talk about, again, any questions, a great question about our program or just 800 in general. Yeah.
Do you do a certain amount of mileage per week for 800 meters?
I'll have a parameter in place, but I won't count it, and I definitely won't have athletes count it, because athletes are athletes and they'll get way too in their head and they'll think that it's a magic number, like I got to get to 30 miles a week, and if I do that, then it's that. But yeah, I'll try to, like, when I'm mapping out the season, have some guidelines in place, and the numbers always going to be figured out about like where were they before. So like knowing when NAVASKY, when he comes into our program, so like if you get a transfer or a good athlete coming in, like I'll always have an athlete fill out a questionnaire and have a conversation with them of what they did in the past. So if I knew they ran, 20 miles a week the previous year, I'm not going to bump them to 40 miles a week. They'll probably do 25. Even our athletes, like when they come join our program, I will usually keep them the same the first year, because I have to account for the fact that they're moving, they're coming to a new environment, they're adapting to a new training system, and things like that. I would do the same thing if I was a college coach and I had a freshman coming in their first year. So again, I'm pretty conservative, steady work over time, keeping athletes healthy, and things like that. But yeah, I'll start it out, I'll have that in mind, and then I don't look at it much anymore. And then athletes do keep training logs in our program. Again, as a high school coach, I guess there is enough things for a high school coach right now to have to be able to kind of like have athletes keep a training log. But like, and when I did coach high school athletes, I did have them keep a training log. I think that's extremely valuable. It's valuable to you because you'll have a playbook if you have an athlete that develops and she came to you as a 225 athlete and she left running 208. Like, you have a playbook there, right? You can go all the way back. And then the athlete has something that they can look at throughout the year and see their progression, and that's going to give them confidence going into a race. Like, if I have to pump up an athlete before a championship, I didn't do a good job coaching them year round, right? Like, all the work that they did should be able to give them the confidence, give them the focus that they need. With NAVASKY is actually a good example because all we did was the week before his first round, he ran a 600 and 113.1, which I think the world record is 112.7. Went out 46.9, held down to run 113.1. I wasn't there. I didn't believe it. I was at the U.S. camp. I was half the time in Jamaica, Jamaican camp, or tutorial with the Jamaican camp, half the time in the U.S. camp, and he told me we ran 113.1. The goal was like, to break 115. So, but before that, where he started gaining a lot of his confidence was the sessions that we were doing. At the same effort, the splits were incredibly fast. So all I did was just show like, hey, you ran this session in May, and you ran 144. You're doing this session now, and and like that again just gives him some light bulbs and the ability to go do that. So if an athlete's keeping the training log, it's going to take a lot of the work off your plate of having to pump them up and all things like that.
Last question. When you talk about that, you're training, you have like 200 meters, 400 meters. My question to you, my last question, give other people a chance. Do you have him running long distance, so say running a 7 mile or 8 mile on the hills? Do you incorporate that in your training?
Yeah, we don't have enough.
You don't have enough.
Yeah,
right.
so like,
okay.
so again, same thing like what I said before. Like, I can't come down here and say like, I think one of the biggest things for success for NAVASKY's program, unfortunately, was this lever device, right? I was able to pick up his volume, and that it was just specific to the type of athlete he is. He's tall. He puts a lot of force into the ground. Like him going out a 12-mile run, it eventually that led to a lot of issues with his knees, hamstrings, things like that. So luckily we were able to figure out this thing with the lever. So that was, and we found that because we moved from, our group used to be in Washington, D.C. We have trails down there, we have good training environment down there, and then we moved up to Baltimore. Baltimore is very urban, there's not trails, so we lost a lot of big turf fields that we had, so we had to figure out, okay, what are we gonna do? So that's where we started to implement this treadmill stuff. Never touched a treadmill before in my life with an athlete, but it became very popular with Ingebrigtsen and a lot of other Grant Fisher and a lot of these athletes. I was like, all right, we're gonna try it. And because that was what our environment gave us. And it worked out well. So if you have a run, a great hill run, and you can drop them off and pick them up, that's good stuff. Yeah, for sure. We just don't have that here. In Baltimore, we don't even have a place where you can just go and not stop. So again, that's why the treadmills became so valuable. So always coach to your environment.
Okay.
Everybody's gonna have an asset. Everybody's gonna have a liability. You gotta minimize the liabilities, enhance the assets.
Coach, you said you started your career as a high school coach. What challenges you may have faced a talented, say, 15, 16-year-old boy in getting into international ranks? What challenges you have encountered with a talented 15, 16-year-old?
Yeah, I would probably say, first thing, we're gonna have different challenges in the U.S. than Jamaica, just my guess. I had a group when I first started, they drove me crazy. They were, I kid you not, distance runners, smoking, drinking, cigarettes, weed, incredible, just so talented, but just so distracted by being high school kids. That's very, very common in the U.S. in track because track isn't, is prominent in the sport and things like that. So that's one side of the spectrum is can you get the athlete motivated? I would say that I learned from that group, if I go back now, I probably spend less time on that athlete, even though they're really, really talented. I'd probably spend the time on the athlete that wants to be, because after they left, that group was still to this day, probably the most talented group of high school athletes I worked with. They graduated. There's 2 twin brothers and a third, like that. Then we broke a lot of records, did really great. And I thought, okay, how are we going to top this when they all graduated? We destroyed all the records when they left because we found a group of guys that were focused and dialed in and really wanted to be great. They weren't nearly as talented, but they were able to develop over time. So half the side of the spectrum is like, can you get a high school kid to focus? Again, seeing how many athletes you have out here today, I would guess that the bigger challenge is going to be what I had with the second group of high schoolers I had, is holding them back and making sure that they're not doing too much. So that second group that I mentioned to you, still to this day, outside of somebody like as focused and dialed in as NAVASKY, that group of high school kids that I had, like I would meet them at 6 o'clock in the morning to swim in the morning, and then they'd come in the afternoon and we'd have our track sessions and things like that. So my hardest thing with them is holding them back. So to take an athlete from national class to international class as a young athlete, it's either going to be one or two things. It's making sure that they understand and value hard work, which again, I think that's probably less of an issue here, but you'll still find it. Or it's going to be like holding them back and focusing on that principle of steady work over time. So not doing too much too soon and just always giving them room to grow.
Okay, based on the first question that was asked in regards to the mileage, you would have stated that you already have a set mileage, however, you would have a base in which you would have to work on. What base would you work on in terms of that?
Yeah, high school?
Yes.
School. So yeah, I will, no, so I do have in mind before the season starts, like where I want them to develop in terms of volume. But when the season starts, I'm just not counting it. Like I'll know, like, in a given week, they're going to be at this. I don't care if it's, again, if the goal is 30 miles, I don't care if it's 25 or I don't care if it's 35, as long as it's somewhere around there. Again, 3 categories of 800 meter runners. So if you have a speed-based high school athlete, I'm going to guess, as they're going to, by the time they're done in high school, probably not get to more than like 15 to 18 miles a week of running. But when they're freshmen, so you still in Jamaica, is it freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, or 9, 10, 11, 12? What's the
First year, second year, third year.
3 years, 3-year course. Okay, so 3 years over time. So I'll speak in terms of that, right? So you get, first year athlete, like maybe 8, never run like 8 to 12 miles. The next year it's like 10 to 15. Third year it's like 15 to 18. That's for a 400 800 athlete. That middle category, so in NAVASKY, when he's in high school, he might be more like, you start him out and he's probably like 15 to 20 miles a week, and then maybe 20 to 25, and then his senior year or third year, he's going to be maybe more like 30 to 35. A distance runner or a 15-8 athlete, it's probably going to be them starting around 20 to 25. The second year maybe getting to like 30 to 35, and then that third year getting to like 35 to 40. That to me is always like and again, you might have some outliers. Kamoy Campbell's coach, he walked away. Okay, yeah, Kamoy obviously was, right there, yeah, there you go. Different piece, right? Different person. So you're gonna find those people, and if they respond well to more running, and you see them like, it's kind of like when you have a good student in class and they're just like, they're bored out of their mind because they're reading at a college level and
you are teaching.
Yeah, so if they can handle more and you have outliers, don't hold an athlete back too much. At the same time, like, again, I always am focused on, if I have a high school athlete, I want them to compete well, but I also want them to, especially if they show promise to develop on the collegiate level and beyond, I want them to still be able to grow. So the best coaches that I see in the U.S., I don't want to say in the U.S. because that's just what I have more visibility to, the best coaches are the ones that their athletes run well in high school, and then they go on and they still continue to run well. Scott Christensen, I don't know if anybody knows Scott. He's one of the first people I learned from. Again, I told you the sport. Went to a lot of clinics with him. He helped me form a lot of my ideas about the sport. When he was coaching in high school, he every single year would have a guy run under 4:10 a mile. Like every single year. A lot of athletes running in the low 4.0s, back before super shoes and all that good stuff. But he was the first coach for a while I think there's probably maybe a few coaches now that have done this, but like he had 4 athletes that went on to break 4 in college. So incredible coach national
For the mile.
for the mile, yes. Yeah, so incredible coach in high school, national class coach in high school, but his athletes got better. So those numbers are probably like lower than you might see, especially in like an American program, because American coaches are going to be very focused on like some coaches are good, and some coaches are just going to try to get as much out of their athletes as possible in high school with paying attention to no regard of their college career, so that they can have whatever, you know, get whatever they want out of it.
Well, just for your edification, I'm in college here in Jamaica. I used to average between 90 and 100 miles per week, right? And I ran from 800 to the marathon.
Yes.
No, and I found it helped me a lot because I didn't know a lot of track work. I mean, I competed like at the development meets, and that time we didn't have much like now. But I'm talking back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I ran 151 at the intercollegiate.
Yeah.
405 for the 1454 for the 5,000. And I ran 151 for the 800.
Yeah.
And then I also was a road racer.
Yes.
So I did 21 minutes for 4.5 miles also. I
Yes.
went in 4:30 per mile. And then I broke the Jamaica record for the marathon, running 2:23.
Yeah.
Based on a mileage, just
Yes.
running
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
90 and 100 miles per week.
Yes.
I found it helped me, you know.
Yeah,
And
for
that's I was in college when
Yes.
I was in college.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, there's going to be the outliers. So like, if you're asking for like a baseline,
Yes.
especially if you're trying to really focus in on the 800,
Yeah.
like that's kind of the numbers I'm giving. But you're going to be an outlier, and again, you'll see that. You'll see like this kid just seems to run more. Like he's going to be a little bit different. And again, I know if you have a big program, you can't individualize it as much. But again, if you have an outlier, you know, try to give them what they need. I think the best way to be a good teammate is to be successful in your own regard, because you're going to uplift the rest of the team. So I try within the parameters, again, I did the same thing in high school. I try with the parameters that I have, give as much individualization as possible. Those 4 bites that I had in high school that were, you know, running in the low 740s and you know, breaking state records and all that kind of stuff. Like we had 2 milers on it, and we had 400 meter runners on it. You know, the 400 meter runner might run 10 to 15 miles a week. The 2 miler is probably running 50, 60 miles a week. And you have your guys that run, that makes sense why you went to the marathon, right? So,
That's right, because I came because I was the mileage.
Yes.
You know, the mileage.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding,
Yeah.
I used to do hills, another hill every morning, running like 5 to 7 miles a day. So
Yeah.
that helped me also, you know, and cover it in the training also.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody else? Cool. So I know NAVASKY's taken through, I know this probably a lot of your athletes. NAVASKY's taken. Yes.
I got asked you a question a while ago about the athletes being the first one being asked about the mileage. What do you do to the athlete who is super driven and he doesn't believe that what you argue with him is enough mileage? Because he's heard everywhere around the world. The Kenyans are running X amount of mileage.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that situation?
It's tough. You gotta try to. Again,
Especially in high school.
Yeah. I am lucky enough that I've never had in high school. I guess in high school I've never had that pushback. On the pro level, again, I'm getting athletes that are really successful in high school, really successful in college, and you know, have the ability to be really successful at the pro level. So I've had to change my style to be a lot more back and forth, have a conversation. I've never been a dictator in that regard anyways, but really trying to like, you know, have a conversation and I think the biggest thing you can do is just like always have an explanation of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if you have, I know situations where like you will have athletes that you give them something to practice and they go and they do something on their own and you can't control that. So at the end of the day, it's like, again, I brought up the athletes that were drinking and smoking and all that kind of stuff. Like, I can't do anything about it, right? So it's control what you can control. And then as a coach, all you can do is like, do your best at explaining what you're doing while you're doing. If you can't explain what you're doing while you're doing, then you got to figure it out. Because again, you owe it to your athletes to always have a plan, always be intentional about what you're doing, and things in mind. And I would hope that you're going to break through to that kid eventually. Or it's just a back and forth, and maybe you do realize you got someone like him that's just like, he needs that volume and he's successful. A lot of times too, like, I might let a kid go down that route and they get to own their situations. And if they either run well and you look like a great coach, or they don't run well and you get to say, I told you so, like, go back to my plan, right? So, so yeah, there's plenty of different ways you can figure it out, but yeah.
Alright,
Yeah.
I was just with Scott last couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he recommended in the clinic that I went to that in terms of the mileage that we do per week for athletes, high school athletes, it should be around 38 to 40 miles per week.
Yep.
But that amount of mileage, that's like 3 to 4 miles per day. And it should incorporate all the drills, all the workout that you do for the day. So if you're going to do your warm up, a two-lap, you have to calculate that. The drill that you do,
sure.
you would have to calculate that in the mileage in
Yes.
order to get the full mileage. And in terms of working out the mileage per week for the athlete, as you said before, if you have athletes who are 4, 8 runners, 8, 15 to 3,000 or 15 steeplechases, you'd have to work out that mileage according to the ability of the athlete. Because you have athletes who can manage that 40 miles per week, while you have others that will not manage. So you have to do it based on the ability of the athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, ability and where they are,
Yeah,
right? Like,
right. And it has to do with the phase
Yes.
in which we're working
Yep,
with.
yep.
So Gen Prep, it's like a zone 1, mostly zone 1
Yeah.
working out. And then you move on to the specific, you go into zone 2. And as soon as you reach like the competitive phase, you move on to the high intensity, where you're going to hit that VO2 max, where you need to work it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and distance runners are a whole different conversation, because there are some distance runners that, like, if you take away, again, everything I'm saying right now, I'm saying with the intent of 800, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've coached distance runners, I've coached state championship distance runners, marathon trials, qualifiers, things like that, but like, my focus is the 800. But again, in high school, like a 4x, you might have an athlete that's good enough to run your 3,000 and go all the way down to the 800. But yeah, with distance runners, and going on a tangent, you might see distance runners that, like, if you taper them, and you might even see intermediate runners, if you taper them and back them off, during a championship, they might get worse. On the flip side, there are athletes, if you don't taper them, they might not run well. So you have 3 years to figure it out, right? Like, it'd be great if you get it right in the first year. Coaching is just educated guess after educated guess after educated guess. That's why those training logs are super valuable, because a lot of NAVASKY's success can be owed to mistakes that I've made and notes that I've also made, right? So like over time, learning, like just getting some clues of like, okay, again, if I've probably coached in our group maybe 30 athletes, and they're all very different, but they all have similar qualities. And when NAVASKY comes in, it's like, all right, is he more like, Alex, or is he more like Eidos? And I start to I try to like kind of set up a plan, and then you make these checkpoints each week of like, okay, is he adapting to that plan? And over time, you'll start to realize, yeah, we're going in the right direction. With somebody that's brand new, it's probably my mid-year. Again, though, I have the benefit of like, I'm only working with 8 people. I'm assuming a lot of your programs are a lot of people. But again, you can segment it out. You have some people that are there for the camaraderie, and they just want to be around the team. You have some people that are there that are semi-serious, and then you have some people that are there that are, that this is their vessel to get to college. This is their vessel to, and maybe at someday be like NAVASKY and have a pro contract. So it's always meeting the athletes where they're at.
I noticed you inculcated the 3 systems, right?
Yep.
Well, so like for BRUMLIK, how important the timing when you work with these athletes? How important, how much should you, how long should you a session should be last? In terms of inculcating, remembering the recovery.
Yeah.
Utilizing the recovery.
So like in between days?
No, recovery key.
Like during a week though?
And the days workout.
Yes. So in a specific day or like in the week, like
Generally, like how long?
Depends on the workout that you're doing.
Okay, if they're doing 2 in a day?
No, I said, for
One.
example,
Like rest, like
how
rest.
long would a session you
Oh,
would
okay.
say?
Yeah. So his session today was about 35 minutes. If we're trying to tap into, so I guess I'll back up one sense that we're like, again, I think in Jamaica, correct me if I'm wrong, sprinting is the sprint capital of the world. Like, I probably shouldn't come up here and try to preach our speed development days because you guys probably run circles around me in terms of like how to help athletes put power in the track. Where I do feel like I have learned a lot and have been able to figure out like what what could be missing in terms of like a 4-8 athlete, an 8 specific athlete, a speed-based athlete, which again, I said it before, we're gonna have a lot more Tyrese Taylors than NAVASKYs, we're gonna have a lot more Kelly Ann's than NAVASKYs. So the days on our Tuesday practices where they're very time aerobically focused, that's the day where like how long the session is really important. How long are you spending in that heart rate zone and that effort level? So that's truly what you're looking at. Of like, you probably want to get to the point, like I said, with NAVASKY with his treadmill days, he's getting up to like 40 minutes. But I guess if you take the rest of the two, it's probably gonna be like 48 minutes or so in that heart rate zone for a high school athlete. Like probably starting at like 15 to 20 minutes in that heart rate zone. Again, like I said, if you want an easy workout to be successful to develop your aerobic system, it's probably going to be the easy 200s with short rest and building up the volume there. So if you're doing, and the other part about that too is like if you're doing, a lot of people try to think like to develop strength you need to do mile repeats. Which again, if you're a distance runner, it's going to make sense. But an 800 meter runner, they have a high tolerance for speed, but they have a low tolerance for distance. Where they struggle, especially a 4-8 athlete, is not the speed of the race. If you got a 2-flat athlete, it's probably not going to be, and they're speed based. It's probably, and they run, let's say 50 point in the 400. It's probably not going to be going out in 55 seconds. It's probably going to be getting past 90 seconds when you need the aerobic system to be operating at a high level, and it's the duration of it. So like, that's why I've gone away from like, if you're trying, again, everybody thinks like you need to be doing like mile repeats and Ks and 12s and all that stuff. Maybe at some point, but if you start them with 100s or 200s, you're gonna get to those same numbers of like a 20-minute session, building up to maybe like a 30-minute session. So like again, if NAVASKY's doing 48 minutes, I would say an appropriate session for a high school athlete is like, can they get 30 minutes in that zone? Which you can do that with 100s, you could do it with 150s, you could do it with 200s, and they're going to have better mechanics when they're running. That's the other bad part about like that I don't love about mile repeats for 800 meter athletes is their mechanics aren't going to be as put together as you want them to. So the shorter volume, if you know the basis of the theory is like if you've ever heard of like if you look up the name on the internet, Igloi, his methodology back in like the 60s led to an athlete winning gold medal, Bob Schul, in the 5,000 meters, and it also developed what was the Santa Monica Track Club, where you had Johnny Gray, Kadivus Robinson, David Mack, all those kind of guys, where they would do a lot of short intervals. That again, it didn't spike up the lactate, it didn't spike up the heart rate, it kept it steady for a certain amount of time. So those are the days. The Tuesday days are the only days where I'm really looking at how long was the session. And again, it's the beginning of the year, or a low-level athlete, might be 15 to 18 minutes, and you want to try to get to like 30 minutes or so. Again, for 800 meter runners, right? A high school kid that's yourself, like you could probably spend 40 to 50 minutes in that zone and be fine with those long runs that you're doing. But again, your 800 meter athletes, like, again, this is mistakes I've learned over time. It's not me being a genius of any sort. When I brought in a 4-8 athlete, like maybe 8 years ago or something, where you think like these Ks and these 8s are the way to get an athlete like aerobically stronger, but then this girl finishes a rep. She's a 52-second 2-flat girl, similar skill set to Kelly Ann. She finishes a 600 or an 800 or whatever it was, and she's like, I feel lactic, right? I feel like, and she's running super slow. She's only running like 3 minutes. Her mechanics are terrible. She has super high lactate, and I don't walk away being like, okay, we tapped that system. So those 200s I'm talking about, like your athletes should be 6 out of 10 effort, controlled breathing, controlled posture. If you have them do 50, they should be able to do 20. If you have them do 20, they should be able to do 25. It should be easy, smooth, controlled mechanics, over time. And then again, the way to make it more challenging is you bring down the rest. 60 seconds for like, let's say you have a 2 flat 800 meter runner, 60 seconds rest where they're running like 36s is going to feel really, really easy. And then later in the year, at the same effort, better fitness is going to be like 30 seconds rest, and they're running like 32s or 33s or whatever it is. But it's always controlled, always measured. Again, you guys don't have access to the lactate stuff. If you have heart rate monitors, that's great. But again, even the heart rate stuff I stay away from in situations like you guys have with high heat, high humidity, because it's just going to be super spiky. So the best thing you could probably do is effort level, watch your athletes, tell them to slow down on those aerobic days specifically. Because again, that's where I think if we're talking about developing Jamaican 800 meter runners, my guess is most cases, it's probably going to be how do you help them develop aerobically. Like I said, more Tyrese Taylors and Beckfords than NAVASKYs. I think NAVASKY's a bit of an outlier.
What's the longest distance
So in a day, those days where he's doing the treadmill stuff, 12 miles. But in a run, in his old program, he used to do a really good 12-mile run. And he felt like he got a lot out of it. Felt like it made him stronger. But again, he just started having a little bit too many like small injury issues.
But he does that once per week, 12-mile run?
He would. He used to. Yes. Once per week. So that's when I took out of like, hey, all right, let's take out that 12-mile day and add in this lever day, and a lot of those issues went away.
I don't know what.
But I think he's asking what's the longest running interval?
Interval. Sorry.
Yeah. You said added what?
It's called a lever. So it's if you look on our Instagram, once a week you'll probably see us on this like treadmill where it's got these like, it costs about, it's like an Ultra G treadmill. Again, Ultra Gs are like $35,000. The lever is still pretty expensive, but it's still only $1,000. But it takes the weight off and allows them to be able to put in a high amount of volume. Again, pretty high tech, hard to get access to, things like that. But longest interval.
Yeah, on the track, yes.
It'll be in a session like this. So today he was 4s and 2s. That'll progress to like, if he passes the session, meaning like it was easy. Today was pretty easy. Then next time he'll go 5s and 3s, and then like 8s and 4s, and then like Ks and 5s, maybe 12s and 6s, but you might run out of season by that time. So
the highest you'll go right now is say 1,000.
1,000. Yeah, maybe 1,200. You might do like 2 sets of 12, 8, 4, or something like that.
Okay.
But on those VO2 max days, where you're really trying to increase aerobic capacity, you're trying to extend the distance as long as you can. But again, in our program, steady work over time, we're going to start really low level. Right now, the emphasis of the track workouts and the hill workouts are keep it in the system, so all systems go. We're keeping it, involved, but it's really low level. Right now, the most important days for us are, the most important elements of training for us are the weight room, the speed development, and the high-end aerobic work. So the stuff he's doing on the treadmill, or again, like if I was here coaching, it'd be like, right now, I'd be trying to get those 200s as high as they can go. Again, maybe even twice a week. So that an athlete builds a good base, and then you bring those down when you bring in the specific work, more regularly.
Sorry, could you just repeat what are the most important things that you just mentioned?
So right now, in the fall period, the most important thing we're focusing on is the overall speed development. So we're on our speed days, for example, like in the fall, Carrie, our strength and speed coach, like, or me, or both of us, we're taking the athlete through every single drill and making like corrections. In the closer to race season, like we just kind of let them manage their own warm up because they're they kind of got it down, so it's a little bit less focused. Practice might be a little bit shorter. So the technique and speed development days are going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more focused. The weight room now is a really good time to build up a ton of strength and power. I think one of the biggest reasons for NAVASKY's improvement last year was he would hang clean in his old program, but it was with terrible mechanics. So he learned how to hang clean, which helped him put force into the ground, which helped him develop better speed on the track. And when he came to our program, he'd be running a 150 at like 17.5, and that was all out. Last year at the end of the year, he'd be running 16 flat, and it'd be smooth, and he'd be bouncing. His word, bouncing. So yeah, like that. Really focusing on the foundation in the weight room, and then that's also on the opposite side of the spectrum. we're gonna have the volume all the way up, right? So the again, whether it's 25 by 200, whether it's the stuff we're doing with our treadmill stuff, the volume is going to be at its highest. So both sides of the there's two sides of the spectrum. You have speed development, you have aerobic development. We're going to be up here with both in the fall, so there's going to be a big contrast. So you're going to be kind of too tired to really hit the fun stuff, the specific stuff, but you want to build a base. And when I say base, it's base of speed and base of endurance. And then you kind of go a little bit more specific as the year goes on. And the dials of volume and speed go a little bit less of a focus, but they're still present. We're still going to be doing flies all year round. We're still going to be doing weight room all year round. We're still going to be doing aerobic work all year round. But I'm just playing with those dials.
Do you do any kind of weight training with NAVASKY? Any kind of weight?
Yeah.
How often?
Twice. So Mondays and Fridays after his hard sessions.
Okay.
Every athlete's different. Every program's different. I like hard days hard, easy days easy. So like some athletes like, they might lift on their easy days. I prefer like an easy day is as mentally and physically easy as possible. So they really just refocus, re-energize, and then when they come to practice, they're ready to hit it and be focused.
And how long is NAVASKY training since it started?
So he took about a 3-week break of no running.
After the World Championships?
After World Championships. All athletes are different. So some athletes some athletes want to keep going right away. I'd say at the minimum, I want 2 weeks. But Jonah Koech, our athlete that made the world final in the 1500, he just started running 2 weeks ago. So he took about 8 weeks off, 6 to 8 weeks off, and he's not doing indoors. NAVASKY's going to do a little bit of indoors, maybe. So he took 3 weeks off, and then he has a month by himself where he's just kind of doing runs. And again, he had a great season. So I keep saying he went on a world tour. He got to go and go on trips and have fun and just be a normal person. And then we started back with practice in November. So November to September, so 10 months. Yeah, but we up and down, right? So breaking between indoors and outdoors. I try to make sure holidays they can have with their families and things like that. But yeah, it's 10 months to grind, but emphases are different all year round for sure. Anybody else?
When he does weight training, the time period between when you back up and say a big competition coming up, you take him off weight, say a month before the championship?
Never off weights, but the emphasis of weights will change. It'll be more.
Yeah.
It'll be maybe right now it's pushing. Well, right now it's maybe more focused on mechanics, and then he'll get to a phase where he's really pushing himself on a deadlift or a hang clean or stuff like that. Close to the season, we don't take it away. We just he might do a hang clean, but it's gonna be really light, really light little power. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he comes somewhere where he doesn't have access to a weight room, and he's doing med ball tosses and plyos and things like circuit or something like that. But always kind of making sure you keep that stimulus in there. A lot of times for a hormonal effect, but just decreasing the load.
So what is NAVASKY nutrition?
Nutrition, I don't manage nutrition too much. I will try to bring nutritionists around our program, and if an athlete wants to opt in, they opt in. Now, if an athlete has a terrible diet, I will step in. We had an athlete that made a U.S. final, kept getting injured, and one of the things we talked about was his diet, and it was, you would not think it was a pro athlete. You would have thought it was, a 12-year-old boy or something like that. So I'll step in if I need to and kind of have those conversations, but I'll also, with a lot of things, sports psychologists as well, mental training, all that kind of stuff. I'll make connections with people. I'll give athletes the opportunities to, talk to somebody, and if it resonates with them, go and do it. Especially something like mental training. Some people are really into it, some people are not. You have to be into anything if you're going to do it. Same thing with nutrition.
And do you know what he do after training? What he like to do after training?
Say it again.
Do you know what he like to do after training?
What the rest of his day likes? No. I let him kind of manage it and things like that. If I can usually tell if an athlete is about the lifestyle or not about the lifestyle based on who I get at practice every morning. Because we train in the morning. You know, you can kind of tell if you have an athlete that's not serious. He's 100% serious. He's all in. But we've had that before. We're like, and again, it doesn't make sense at this level because why keep doing it if you're not all in? So we've been lucky enough to build that culture over time where we've gotten more and more people like Kelly and like NAVASKY that are serious, focused, and live the right lifestyle.
What do you do for speed work?
For speed work? So, I guess with speed work, are you talking more like speed development, like short sprints, or like race specific work?
Short sprints.
Okay, yeah. So for us, speed day starts. They warm up like they warm up for a workout. They're going to do some pretty focused drills. If you kind of saw him doing a lot of his drills before practice, it's going to be a lot of those types of drills, but maybe a little bit more intentional, a little more focused. Some bounding and things like that. I don't think he was doing bounding today. Some switch runs and things like that. I don't think he was doing that type of stuff today. So maybe some little bit more intentional drills. And then I butcher like what we're actually doing, Carrie, our speed coach, like because I've been doing speed development with, again, if I have an athlete that runs a 5K, they're doing speed development. And I've been doing that since I've coached 18 years ago. I've always had, you know, that element in our program because I believe that speed is a foundational thing, just like endurance is. So I'm probably not as technical, and I might not be saying the right terminology. And I don't want to insult any sprint coaches here, but yeah, I say 30-meter fly. So it probably ends up being more like a 20-meter fly because it's like a 10-meter run in, and then we're timing. So I say we use free lap. We're timing a 20-meter segment, and that 20-meter segment will dictate. So they'll do 3 by a 30-meter fly for every speed day. That's those segments, so like their fastest time in that segment will dictate the rest of the speed day. So like if NAVASKY, his PR in that 20-meter segment is 2.15, so if he on a day, and the weather's okay, if he's on a day and he's like 2.2, if he's like 2.3 plus, like again, if his PR is 2.15 and he does a couple flies and he can't break 2.3, I know he's probably fatigued, so I'm gonna change like most of the sessions. So most of the times they know what they're doing when they show up because I put it in an email. But the speed days, they show up and then I let the flies dictate what we're doing. If you don't have a free lap, you probably have a great coaching eye. Because the free lap, I can just look at a number and be like, oh, that's easy, right? So you guys probably have great, if you don't have free lap, you probably have a great coaching eye. And you can just know like, all right, this athlete's fatigued, we're gonna, bring down the session. I'm very much on the speed days, I'm treating them like sprinters, where like, speed is king, volume is not. So it's going to be pretty low level in terms of volume, but pretty high focus on velocity, mechanics, and quality of movement, things like that. So again, a typical session might be 3 by a 30, 1 to 2 by a 50. The 30s are going to be in their flats. The 50s might be in the spikes, depending on the year and the weather and all that kind of stuff. That stuff is timed as well, so I have his PRs in all those events, all those runs and stuff, so that'll give me a little bit more feedback as well. It was really actually great to see that stuff early on because coming in our program, I thought he didn't have that great of top end speed, but I just realized it wasn't actually developed. Like he had it there, he had the power there, but it wasn't developed. Again, 17.5 and a 150 before he got here, 16 flat by the end. So it was just one of those things where the speed was there, it just wasn't developed. After those 50s, in the fall, we'll do a little bit of race-specific type work, which again, it's as low level as like 6 by 100, 800 effort. As we get closer to the season, it'll get a little bit more specific, where like he's doing, later in the season when it's warm out, the weather turns, he's fit, he's putting good power into the ground. We did a lot of speed development sessions. It might be like 3 by a 30, 2 by a 50, and then maybe like 2 times a 150, where again, he might 15 high, 16 low, things like that. Spiked up, fast, but good mechanics. So really want him to focus on, being able to run fast, but also have good mechanics while doing it. The idea behind that is, if you watch his 800 final, it went out in 23. So like, you gotta be able to get out in 24 low and not redline. That's gonna be the problem for the distance type of athlete. If you watch the Spanish guy, that's a 142 low guy, like that guy cannot touch the pace. I've had athletes before where like they just have to sit back. NAVASKY's good enough. He's a rare athlete, but like he can handle the speed of it and he can handle the strength of it and things like that. So, but no matter whether it's a 4.8 athlete, a 8 specific athlete, or an 8:15 athlete, you're trying to get them to develop that top end speed so that doesn't matter how fast they go out. They can go out in 20. If they go out, if Wanyoni takes out in 23, he can be there, and he's still got room to improve there. So that's the hope too. Again, both sides of the spectrum.
All right, just before you get to any more questions, the athletes are warmed up and ready to do their workout. We need the coaches because you're going to actually time your own athlete and keep them on pace. So NAVASKY is going to explain to you the workout, and then they're going to work out as a group, but you, the coaches, will monitor their times. All right, so ready for you over there? Yes, over here.
Yeah, and any more questions after, I'm here.
Yes.
Come find me. Thank you guys.